Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines over the week. I'm Teniola Shobowale, the headlines. Nigeria becomes first country in Africa to launch a digital currency to drive financial inclusion. Federal government warns perpetrators of violence in Anambra state, vows to deal with the structures of forthcoming governorship election. Appeal court in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, grants People's Democratic Party right to conduct national convention. Plus, violent protests erupt in several cities in Sudan as the head of Sovereign Council dissolves civilian government, declares state of emergency. That's News Round in View. Nation's much-awaited digital currency, the eNaira, by the president, who says that the initiative is estimated to increase the country's GDP by $29 billion over the next 10 years. The launch of the e-currency at the State House in Abuja is described as historic as the country becomes the first in Africa and one of the few in the world to adopt the digital currency. According to the CBN governor, the Apex Bank has minted 500 million eNaira and issued 200 million eNaira to banks, with 33 banks fully integrated and live on the platform.
Unlike any other historic feat in his administration, the digital currency eNaira being unveiled by the president seems particularly promising for the economy.
That is it. That is it.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, leadership of the National Assembly, as well as members of Cabinet, are also physically in attendance for the new payment system, which has taken 4 years to crystallize. Cryptocurrency, like the Bitcoin, has dominated headlines, but the central bank digital currency, which are basically digital versions of the existing national currency, is different.
We have become the first country in Africa and one of the first in the world to introduce a digital currency to our citizens. The use of central bank digital currencies can help move away more people and businesses from the informal into the formal sector, thereby creating the tax base of the country. Indeed, some estimates indicate that the adoption of central bank digital currencies and its underlying technology, called blockchain, can increase Nigeria's GDP by 29 billion United States dollars over the next 10 years.
The CBDCs, which is fast becoming commonplace globally, is a chance for Nigeria to speed up economic gains and the value of the Naira.
Our eNaira is a journey that starts today. It is not a one-off event. It is a journey of possibilities. We will continue to refine, fine-tune, and upgrade it. 33 banks are fully integrated and live on the platform. 500 million Naira has been successfully minted by the CBN. 200 million Naira has been issued to financial institutions. Over 2,000 customers have been onboarded on the platform, and over 120 merchants have successfully registered on the e-platform.
Customers who download the eNaira Speed Wallet app will be able to create wallet, fund their eNaira wallets from their bank account, transfer eNaira from their wallet to another wallet, among other gains. Announcing a new financial instrument titled the 100-400 Policy on Production and Productivity, the CBN governor assures that the eNaira will share the same value as the regular Naira. As a matter of fact, it will be exchanged as 1 Naira to 1 eNaira. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
To security matters and the situation in Anambra State, which the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, is warning that perpetrators of violence in the state will face the federal might. The Security Advisor sounded the warning at the meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security in Abuja ahead of the November the 6th governorship election in the state. According to him, security officials have been briefed to conduct themselves professionally, but never to allow any individual to disrupt peace in the state.
It is less than 2 weeks to the governorship election in Anambra State, and this meeting of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security is held at the headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to appraise the security situation in the state. Attending the meeting are the National Security Advisor, the INEC Chairman, heads of security agencies, including the Anambra State Commissioner of Police. Insecurity in Anambra State has been a major concern for the Independent National Electoral Commission, and that concern still exists less than 2 weeks to the election.
INEC is determined to proceed with the Anambra State governorship election as scheduled. The safety and protection of voters, our personnel, accredited observers, the media and materials are cardinal considerations in any election. We have been assured by the security agencies of a secure environment for the election. I'm sure the CP Anambra State in his briefing will provide more details regarding preparations on the ground.
However, the National Security Advisor gives security assurances while warning those behind violence in the state to have a rethink.
I don't think it will be helpful to anyone to go out and ignite something that might cause pain for the people of Anambra State. For the security agencies, they've been warned. Any rogue element that decides to behave in a manner that will tar our collective institutions in a very dark color will be brought to justice in accordance with the rules of those institutions.
Over 2.5 million registered voters are expected to participate in the Anambra State governorship election, but many believe that the current security situation in the state, if left unchecked, can cause voter apathy.
Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police is raising concerns that the massive deployment of security personnel in Anambra State can have its advantage and disadvantages. The Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, made the comment during a ministerial briefing at the State House. He noted that although the police has deployed 34,587 police personnel to the state, such deployment can be impactful in two ways, one of which is discouraging turnout of voters, which the police is working to avoid.
We journalists
For the second time in the last 6 months, the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Alkali Usman Baba, is the guest at the weekly ministerial briefing in the State House. This briefing is holding 8 days before the Anambra State governorship election, and the police chief explains the expected impact of deploying nearly 35,000 officers for the election.
Our presence is to police the situation in two ways. It is while we are asking people to come out and vote, another group or another subversive elements are saying, don't come, if you come, we'll do this, we will do that. So there must be some level of assurance that we will give to these people to come out. And that requires massive deployment of officers and men who will also ensure that the subversive elements do not take over the process. It has its advantage, but we try to, as much as possible, ensure that it is for the advantage of everybody that the massive deployment should take place.
Given an update on the extradition request for a senior police officer, Mr. Abba Kyari, who was named as an alleged conspirator in the fraudulent deal against socialite Mr. Ramon Abbas, also known as Hush Puppy, the Inspector General asserts that there has been no extradition request.
but I have read it from the social media that there was an extradition request. I have not seen it, I've not heard it formally. We've just received the legal advice from the Office of the Attorney General, and we are working on what to do next in terms of asking the officer to account for what we have gathered in the investigation and what advice we have received. But as for extradition note, I have not received any, I have not had any officially.
It would also be recalled that the Minister of Police Affairs had in September noted that President Muhammad Buhari will have the final say on the extradition request against the erstwhile commander of the Police Intelligence Response Team, Mr. Abba Kyari. The issue of prosecution of criminals, particularly kidnappers, is a huge concern for the police. Over 20,000 active criminal cases filed by the police still suffer delay in the court without appropriate justice meted. The challenge of prosecution of cases has remained a protracted concern for the Inspector General of Police, particularly because of the continued kidnappings on a daily basis with ransom. Now, this presupposes that the fight against these elements might not be as effective unless drastic measures are taken to improve quick dispensation of justice within the system. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Away from Anambra security, the People's Democratic Party's National Convention has received the nod of the appeal court to proceed with its national convention. This follows the dismissal of the application brought before the court by former national chairman of the PDP, Uche Secondus, to suspend the convention pending the determination of the suit before the same court on its status in the party.
It's been a tough legal battle in the last 2 days, arguing whether or not the People's Democratic Party, PDP, should go ahead with the conduct of its national convention this weekend. The former national chairman of the party, Mr. Uche Secondus, on October the 14th, filed an application at the appeal court in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, as part of the processes in the ongoing appeal, testing the validity of his removal as national chairman of the party. In the extensive hearing on October the 28th, counsel to Mr. Secondus, Mr. Tayo Oyetibo-San, argued that refusing to grant his application to suspend the PDP convention can be likened to pulling off the rug under the feet of the applicant, as his appeal on the legality of his removal from office is pending before the court. But the position was opposed by Mr. Henry Bello, counsel to the first to fifth respondents, who argued that the application to stop the PDP convention by Mr. Uche Secondus is alien to existing appeals before the court, bordering on the leadership and membership status of Uche Secondus. At the end of the day, the panel of 3 justices, led by Justice Gabriel Kolawole, gives credence to the argument of the respondents and grants the PDP the right to conduct its convention.
The court has ordered PDP to go ahead with its national convention unhindered, unfettered, and unstopped.
For Mr. Uche Secondus, the battle is not over.
The court agreed that the application was not an abuse of court process, contrary to what they said. However, the court took the view that because of all the arrangements that the party had made, and also all the expenses that they had incurred, that the injunction will not be accepted. So the court has directed that they can continue, that PDP can continue with the National Convention. However, the instruction is the appeal continues, the main appeal continues, and depending on the outcome of the appeal, if the appeal succeeds, then it has the impact on whatever decision that is taken at the National Convention.
Despite having the leave of courts to conduct its national convention, the PDP can only hope that the pending appeal by Uche Secondus does not destroy their effort.
Meanwhile, the former national chairman of the PDP, Uche Secondus, has been explaining why he decided to appeal the court ruling. In a statement, Mr. Secondus says he respects the position of the court even though he disagreed with it. He said that no abuse of the constitution of the party should be allowed to stand. According to him, the issue is about the sanctity of the PDP party constitution and core democratic principles of justice and rule of law, not only in the PDP, but in the nation's democracy, adding that no impunity must be condoned. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Tanko Mohammed, has cautioned lawyers against unethical practices, including aiding politicians in undermining the power, authority, and integrity of the judiciary in the country. Justice Mohammed stated this through a Justice of the Supreme Court, Justice Mary Odili, at the 61st General Conference of the Nigerian Bar Association in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Other eminent personalities at the event, including the State Governor Nyesom Wike, also challenged the NBA to defend the nation's democracy.
Top judicial officers, governors, past and present principal officers of the National Assembly are among those attending the 61st Annual General Conference of the Nigeria Bar Association, tagged Taking the Lead.
Most Reverend Dr.
It is a time for frank conversations as the Chief Justice of Nigeria, represented by Justice of the Supreme Court, Mary Odili, cautioned lawyers against unethical practices, including aiding politicians in undermining the power, authority and integrity of the judiciary in the country.
Is the poor condition of service of national judicial officers, members of the bar that serve in various offices in the arms of government must see the urgency of leading a crusade to address this issue as a matter of urgency. Another challenge, which implicitly impacts the administration of justice, is the assault that litigants, especially politicians, launch on the institution of the judiciary when their cases are not met.
NBA President Olumide Akpata gives an insight into the theme of the conference.
The society needs us at this time more than ever to provide moral leadership that steers the country in general and indeed our individual communities in particular to face these challenges with a united and formidable front.
For the host governor, Nyesom Wike, the NBA must also take the lead in the fight for a better welfare for judicial officers.
The struggle for a better deal for judicial officers is one the NBA must champion with utmost priority and commitment before it's too late in the day to rescue it from total collapse.
Some other eminent personalities present also have some words for the lawyers.
A constitution must have enough material, but also every citizen must be able to ask themselves, can I see a reflection of myself? We are all familiar, those of us who are lay people, even many of us are familiar with what is in chapter 2 of the Constitution. But we are being told it's not justiciable. We cannot say that we are hungry. And because you are saying we cannot say we are hungry, we cannot go to court because we are hungry, well, we will express our frustration elsewhere.
The conference is thereafter split into a panel session as the association targets a wider participation in discussions aimed at changing the course of leadership in Nigeria.
As part of measures towards improving the nation's infrastructure, the federal government has approved the reconstruction of 21 roads covering over 1,800 kilometers across the 6 geopolitical zones by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to be funded with its tax liabilities. The approval was given at the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the State House. Addressing State House correspondents after the meeting, the Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, said that 9 of the roads are located within the North Central Zone.
Presiding over the virtual Federal Executive Council meeting in the absence of the President, who is away on an investment summit in Saudi Arabia, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has about 8 ministers in attendance. The Council in the end approved that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited reconstruct 21 federal roads across the country, primarily to halt disruptions to fuel supply.
Petroleum energy distribution is being impacted positively and negatively, as the case may be, by the transport infrastructure. which is ministerial mandate 4. So NNPC has sought and Council has approved today that NNPC deploy tax resources to 21 roads, covering a total distance of 1,804.6 kilometers across the 6 geopolitical zones.
9 of the selected projects, according to the minister, are in North Central, 3 in Northeast, 2 in Northwest, 2 in Southeast, 3 in South-South, and 2 in Southwest.
The whole package is 621 billion 237 million 143 naira 897.35 kobo. So, but this is not a one-off payment. So let's be clear. It will be spread over periodic tax, this thing, over about 3 years.
Providing a breakdown of the projects, Mr. Fashola explained that it is all under the Executive Order 7, which allows the private sector to deploy in advance the taxes they would pay for infrastructure development.
Now, Dangote Group was the first to take advantage of the Executive Order 7 of 2019 to fix the Obajano to Kaba and Apapa to Oworonshoki Road from its income tax, and then 5 other road constructions approved by the council this year. Now, there are other interested players, according to the minister, who have also indicated interest towards reconstruction, and they might be concluding the details for possible approval by the council in no distant time. Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
Participants at the 5th conference of the Network of African Parliamentarians on Defense and Security Committees in Abuja are expressing worry about what they describe as the weaponization of Africa. According to them, there has to be a paradigm shift in the interventions being provided by foreign countries to Africa.
Parliamentarians from across Africa in Nigeria for this conference on defense and security. The conversation here centers on how to tackle the security challenges on the continent and the need to assess the European Union-African Union cooperation.
Any territorial conflict within Europe.
Participants say there have to be more investments in youth empowerment and education as a panacea to the security challenges on the continent.
The money we are taking to import weapons are the very money that we need to transform our young people who are the victims. They are prone to violence because we talk about recruitment by terrorists, and these are the very young people that are vulnerable.
For the Nigerian parliamentarians, foreign organizations like the European Union should focus their intervention on providing technological support to African countries.
We don't need transfer of weapons, but we need transfer of technology that will build our defense. And these are areas that has opened us up to understand that areas that we can lobby with the international community, how they can assist Nigeria in addressing the issue of insecurity, identifying where the bandits are.
I also think that nations should come together. There should be government-to-government cooperations and collaborations in terms of security and intelligence gathering, where our borders will become more manned and more better policed, so that we can check proliferation of light weapons and small arms, which has been on the increase also at the moment.
For the next 3 days, the conference is expected to come up with recommendations to combat the security challenges on the continent, and participating countries are expected to adopt these recommendations. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
General Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, the head of Sudan's Sovereign Council, has announced a state of emergency in the country, also dissolving the Sovereign Council that was overseeing the transition to civilian rule, as well as the dissolution of the cabinet. This comes after Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok and other civilian officials were detained by some soldiers. Pro-democracy protesters have taken to the streets of the capital, Khartoum, to denounce the military takeover.
Tension is high in Khartoum
as protesters gather on the streets on Monday morning amid reports of a military takeover. Angry crowds burning tires in the streets, with the army and paramilitary deployed across the city and restricting the movement of civilians. Members of Sudan's transitional government, including Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok and other civilian leaders, have been arrested. The Information Ministry on its Facebook page says the Prime Minister is asking Sudanese people to continue holding peaceful protests and defend the revolution, adding that joint military forces that earlier detained him in his house have been pressuring him to announce a statement supporting the coup. Flights to and from Sudan's capital, Khartoum, are reportedly suspended. Khartoum International Airport closed and access to it blocked. TV and radio stations also were stormed by the military and internet access blocked. General Abdel Fattah Abdurrahman Burhan has now dissolved the Sovereign Council that was overseeing the transition to civilian rule.
Honorable citizens, I salute you. We stress here that the armed forces intend to complete the democratic transition until the country's leadership is handed over to an elected civilian government. The mechanisms of the transitional period were based on stages and a continued balanced agreement between the civilian and military leaders to move towards a general election from the basis of the work that has been carried out over the past 2 years. But this balanced agreement has turned into conflict.
Sudan has made huge strides in normalizing ties with the West and unlocking much-needed funding streams. The promise of transition to democracy has kept many Sudanese and the country's allies hopeful, but all that could be at risk now.
And that's News Round this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shabuale. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.